Hey everybody, this is D, and today we're going to talk about part two in the series of dosing.
You will now be known as Sharkbait.
Sharkbait! Ooh ha ha!
Welcome, brother Sharkbait.
Sharkbait! Ooh ha ha!
Enough of the Sharkbait.
Sharkbait!
So today's topic addresses part two in the series, and that is calcium, known as the second part of the dosing system, which is used for coral skeletons, building tissue growth, and the growth of coralline or green calcareous macroalgae. Now, if you're not sure with signs of your tank needing calcium, it will be the growth of new parts of the coral or lack thereof growth. So this will bring us right into the topic. Now let's talk about calcium. Why do we focus so much on calcium? What does your tank use the calcium for, and how do we know how much calcium we need or how much we need to replace? It's a very interesting talk because most of the time we're dosing elements and we really don't understand why we need to dose or how much we need to dose. So we're basically looking at the bottle and dosing whatever that bottle says to dose to your tank without knowing whether our tank actually needs the calcium or not. It's like going to the doctor and taking an aspirin, but you don't have a headache. You read the bottle says how much aspirin you need to take. But if you don't have a headache, do you actually take aspirin? Our corals utilize calcium to build their skeletal tissue, just like humans use calcium to build strong bones. So there is a limit to how much a coral or a human can take in, and there is a balance between how much you need and how much you already have. Now, if you look at the structure of a coral, you'll see that it's basically rock-like, which is similar to bone. And in order to build that rock-like tissue, the calcium needs to bond and be metabolized by the coral. This is why we dose alkalinity. Alkalinity builds the tissue to which the coral can metabolize that calcium and replace it. It more or less makes it more, how can you say, digestible in its balance to which the coral can take in the calcium. Therefore, this is why we say as your alkalinity goes up, your calcium generally goes down, because it is being metabolized by both the algae, the calcareous algae, or what you will say coralline algae, and the skeletal tissue of coral. Now, for the topic of this discussion, we're going to look at Kent's liquid calcium supplement, which is a very popular and very effective supplement for dosing calcium to your aquarium. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the directions that tell us how to dose based on the level of the tank, which is measured in gallons. So as you see, this says based on a 50-gallon aquarium, you're going to dose 1 to 5 milliliters of this supplement to dose the aquarium. Now, two things that happen more often than not. Now, I'm going to say, first of all, 1 to 5 milliliters ought to tell you right there that your need is not always 5 milliliters, but they're telling you to dose between 1 and 5 milliliters as not to overdose the system. Secondly, when you're looking at the gallons of water in the aquarium, more often than not, people measure the gallons of the aquarium. So let's say you have a 40-gallon breeder. They say, okay, I have 40 gallons of water. That is not always true in most cases because, first of all, you have rock, You have sand, you have substrate, you may even have decorations in the aquarium, which will make that aquarium a little bit under 40 gallons. Second of all, you have a sump, you have filtration, you have skimmers, which may add to the volume of the tank, so you may have more than 40 gallons. And this should be taken into account when you're dosing the aquarium. And now, based on that measurement, this volume of calcium supplement is based on hitting that target of 420 parts per million of calcium. And you may even use this supplement with kalkwasser, which I would not recommend, because as we said, if you don't understand how much your tank is using, how do you know how much to dose? So in this instance, I almost always recommend for myself and others, if you have to dose half the amount that you would regularly be instructed to dose. So if you're going to dose 5 milliliters, I would say dose 2.5 milliliters, and then measure the volume of calcium in the water. Sorry for the shaky hands there. Now, another very popular element to dose is Kent's Purple Tech, which also increases the amount of purple calculus dosage of calcium as far as the green. People use this when they want to build coralline algae. And that's, if you're not familiar with coralline algae, is what's pictured on this bottle. That's the purple stuff you see growing on the glass. Now, if you look at this tank, for instance, I do not focus on growing coralline algae, but yet I look at the growth, such as new tips like this, and encroachment, or rather what we call encrusting of coral onto rock, is how I know whether my tank is getting enough calcium or if it lacks the calcium it needs to spread. And if you look here, you'll see that this is spreading onto the rock. And if you look at the edges or tips of the coral, you'll see that there's new growth. So it is always better not to dose those two items at the same time. Of course, you can do what you want, it's your tank, but recommendations from me will always be to dose one thing at a time, measure the growth, look at your tank for the reaction, and take your time. There's no need to rush. Things will all come in time. A lot of the mistakes happen when we try to rush a result, and usually you get a bad result when you try to rush. And now that takes us to the most important thing. Now we're ready to dose. We know how much our tank needs, because what? Because we measured what the existing calcium level is of the tank. Maybe it's 400 and you need to dose it based on 5 milliliters, or it's over 400 and you may not even need to dose. But once you have measured how much calcium is in your tank, then that brings you to how do you measure that 5, 2, or 1 milliliter. I use what I call a D's doser, only because I don't believe in the capful method. Capfuls are never an exact measurement, whereas this, I can take exactly how much I need to dose. For my application, I'm dosing 2.5 milliliters. And when you dose the aquarium, you want to always dose it in a high area of flow, such as by a power head. For my use, I'm going to dose it over here. And you just want to put that in a high area of flow. Some people can put it in a sump by a power head. You can see I dose it right there. And if you want to clear it out, that just shows you how much flow is over there, because I'm injecting a little bit of air into there so that you can see that I'm dosing in an area of high flow. This way you don't get a concentration of that calcium supplement in one area, or risk actually dosing it directly onto a coral. You never want to dose a supplement directly onto a coral, but you would rather dose it in a high area of flow and then make sure that it is actually circulating. As you can see, because I just injected some bubbles in there, that I have water pulling towards the pump and water moving away from the pump. And ladies and gentlemen, that is about it. The moral of the story is And all of the mistakes I see in this hobby, it's usually because we're chasing an end result without understanding how we get to the end result. So if you take your time, look at your tank, do your homework, keep notes, which is very important, and look at your coral. Look at them. They take time. It takes time. Nothing good happens fast, but bad things happen very quickly. Take your time, mark your notes, keep a record of your tank parameters, and you will do just fine. As long as you understand why your coral, fish, and aquatic animals do what they do, then you will understand how to get certain results. So with that being said, this is the end of part 2 in the series. I hope you guys picked up on what I was trying to get over. I hope I was clear and concise. If I wasn't, leave a note in the comments below. I'm always learning, as is our goal in this hobby. We never stop learning. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Click that subscribe button. The next topic in this series is going to be dosing versus feeding. And that's basically what corals need to be directly fed versus getting dosed in the aquarium, and how to go about doing both of those things. So if you like what you've seen, click that thumbs up, click subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and until next time, this is D signing out, keeping my stability by keeping my tanks stable, and I'm going to be out. See ya.